think that if you let them tar and feather you, the world would forgive you. It won't.
We'll see.
Hello and welcome once again to the Cine-Files, where we are continuing and actually concluding our season of Christopher Nolan. My name is Steve Morris. I'm a filmmaker and directing instructor in Los Angeles, California.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Rocha. I'm a writer, producer, and host and voiceover artist in San Diego, California. And finally, Steve, we have gotten to the after effects of the bomb, and we are dealing with the last few minutes of the movie. There's a lot that happens in these last few minutes. It's pretty poignant. So I'm looking forward to us talking about it for sure.
Absolutely. And we couldn't do any of that without our incredible supporters on Apple Podcasts as well as on Patreon. We just had a fantastic meeting with the advisory board where we discussed some pretty exciting upcoming Cine-Files One takes, some new topics for shorts, all of that stuff that we're very excited about it. And we really, really appreciate all of your support.
Yeah, absolutely. And another way you can support us here on the show is if you're listening to us with the ads and you hear about a product or a service that you want to try out, we'd appreciate you using our code that we put out on those commercials so that you can get some percentage off as you try out this product and service. And by trying it out, you're also indicating to these companies that our audience does respond to their stuff and they will come back every month to support us here on the show. Right now we have Thompson Cigars, BetterHelp, 11 Reader, Quince, and Omaha Steaks ads running on our show. So thank you to all of them for supporting us, and thank you to all of you who are supporting us as well in your way.
I made Omaha Steaks burgers for my son just last night, and they were delicious. Just so you know, they were really, really good. So where we left off, we had just kind of set up that really we now have our two main characters in two parallel non-trial trials. So we have Oppenheimer at the gray board, and we have the testimony coming up right now of the person that Strauss has most been worried about, which is Rami Malek as Dr. Hill.
It's such an interesting thing. He's such a small part in the movie, but it leads to this moment that's really a strong and powerful and poignant moment and changes the course of the film here for the last few minutes of the film.
So after opening with some fairly complimentary remarks about Strauss, we turn very quickly when he says,
"But I believe that much I have to say will help to indicate why most of the scientists in this country would prefer to see Mr. Strauss completely out of government."
I think at this point, you've been watching this movie a long time, and you've been listening to our podcast for like a month. And at this point, seeing the worm turn on Strauss is like a, oh shit, here it comes moment, you know?
And this had been coming, apparently. You know, doing a little bit of research for these moments here at the end. Hill was the chairman for the Federation of American Scientists, and he had criticized a speech by Strauss that defended his opposition to the shipping of radioisotopes to Norway in 1949. So there's a history here between them as well before he testified, how he testified in this situation. He accused Strauss of a lack of integrity, an obsessive quest for personal approval, persistent arrogance, and personal vindictiveness. And the way the movie plays this out, it makes it seem like he's the only person, but there were other people who testified against Strauss from the scientific community. Hill just kind of encapsulates them all in one in this moment, you know.
Well, and this is, you know, this is how Strauss is hoisted on his own petard, to use that expression. Because, so what happened, so when Oppenheimer goes to do the gray board, which I think is 49, he does it under the understanding that this will be entirely private, which is what he says to Kitty, which is what he believes, that this will be a sealed report. But then it is Strauss who actually leaks the report publicly. So that's why, which we're going to see later in this film, that's why everything comes out. Well, it's Strauss leaking this publicly that Dr. Hill and these other scientists read, which is why they know the horrible shit they put Oppenheimer through, which is why Strauss is now not going to get confirmed as the cabinet secretary.
Yeah.
So it's his own damn fault that this happened. And this is where things start to go Oppenheimer's way, because then we have Matthew Modine testify very strongly that he is very stirred at the Gray Board. And then we're back with Dr. Hill.
The Oppenheimer matter was initiated and carried through largely through the animus of Lewis Strauss. Oppenheimer made mincemeat out of Strauss's position on the shipments of isotopes to Norway, and Strauss never forgave him this public humiliation.
And I think the reaction shots from Robert Downey Jr. as he is watching this is where you're seeing, this is why it's so great that he got to do this movie. Because you get to see like, oh yeah, in addition to being hugely charismatic and funny and a guy we love as Tony Stark, this guy's a brilliant actor.
Strauss turned to the personnel security system in order to destroy Oppenheimer's effectiveness. And Strauss was able to find a few ambitious men who also disagreed with Oppenheimer's positions and envied him his prestige in government circles.
Here's an interesting thing about this testimony. Again, this is right out of the transcripts of what he actually said. But it's not in the book American Prometheus about Robert Oppenheimer. And the reason it's not in that book is the dudes who wrote the book, while they had gone over the Gray Board transcripts and all that stuff, they never bothered to look up the Hill transcripts from the committee. The person who bothered to look it up was Christopher Nolan. Right. He found this whole plot line, and the guy who wrote the book, he's like, oh my God, we missed like this huge thing that's incredibly dramatic about Strauss, because they weren't telling Strauss' story. They were telling Oppenheimer's story. So they didn't bother to look into it. And now we go to Teller at the Gray Board, who again, it's very much like Hill. The first thing he says is that he believes that Oppenheimer is loyal to the United States. And just like in the Hill testimony, we go, oh, this is going to go okay. And then they ask him if he's a security risk.
In a great number of cases, I have seen Dr. Oppenheimer act in a way which was, to me, exceedingly hard to understand. To this extent, I feel I want to see the vital interests of this country in hands which I understand better and therefore trust more.
What a political answer to a guy. Yeah, that's what I
think too.
Right?
Yeah.
To a guy that helped him out. And it's a fascinating moment because of all the people who should be talking about unusual behaviors, Teller is one of the worst to be talking about it, considering some of his behaviors throughout the whole movie. And if you study his life, some of the things he did as well. So it's an interesting thing to it's clear the fix is in to a degree to have him come in and say these kinds of things about Oppenheimer, which are, kind of these brutal takedowns of him to a degree.
He's such an odd character because he just wants to build the H-bomb. He wants to build the biggest bomb he can. That's what he wants. Yeah. Like he doesn't seem like a complicated person. He seems like a weird person, very peculiar, but not actually necessarily complicated, if that makes sense.
That's why he's the last person to talk about how peculiar Oppenheimer is,
And then he gets up, he's walking out, he turns to Oppenheimer and says,
sorry.
And they shake hands.
Oh, and it's a great moment because this is all done. This is a great character beat because this is all done, I think, the shaking of the hands to show that Teller feels guilty about what he said. And he's going to, try to make himself feel better by shaking Robert's hand when he walks out the door. And I think it's critical because obviously we're about to talk about it with Kitty's reaction to it. But this is the kind that Robert has a level of respect that these guys don't. And I think this is really important with the character beat of Oppenheimer. Even people who are taking him down, he's still willing to shake their hands from a place of professional respect. And so it's a fascinating moment. And I get where Kitty's coming from, but also this is Oppenheimer. This is who he is to a degree. So unless he's trying to shtup your wife, of course, but this is who he is in this scenario. So him shaking Teller's hand is from a place of respect that Teller's telling his feelings and points of views. And of course, we've seen him have a back and forth with Teller and not support the H-bomb and have issues with how Teller does certain things. But he also vouched for Teller when Teller wanted to walk out of the program at Los Alamos. So it's a complicated relationship between those two guys for sure.
You know what's interesting that you just made me think of? There's kind of two approaches to look at conflict in the world. And we are very much in one kind of approach. And I tend to think of it in the other way, which is more the Oppenheimer way, which is, are you in an existential crisis where it's us against them, in which case, no holds barred, no Marquis of Queensberry rules, we have to destroy them? Or
Right.
are we in an oppositional process in which there is a back and forth and each side needs to voice its opinion in order to make decisions like in a trial or a legal thing? And I am always in the sort of, well, everybody needs to express their opinion and everybody needs to be treated fairly and we have to work the system or the system doesn't work. And so I might very well be like Oppenheimer and shake Teller's hand in this moment, you know?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, but I mean, I think you can only have those kinds of things if people are authentically trying to seek compromise or understanding for their point of view and not entering into, I think, oppositional discussions with a belief that no matter what that other person says, it won't change your mind. And I think that's what's interesting about Teller and Oppenheimer. They've had exchanges and differences of opinion, but it's never gotten to the point of dismissal of each other, right? Even here, he starts out praising him, but by the end, he kind of politically says that he wouldn't approve him or that he might be a security risk, you know? Which people still believe, by the way. I was doing a little bit of reading on that. There are still people today who think Oppenheimer was a Russian spy, which is insane, or Russian asset, which is insane to me.
I mean, people think the earth is flat. So the fact that people believe insane things.
That's true.
To me, that is far more reasonable to believe that Oppenheimer was a Russian spy than it is to believe that the earth is flat. So,
oh no, we just lost a quarter of our audience.
I'm sorry. Flat earthers, we respect many of your other opinions.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't know whether or not Oppenheimer actually shook his hand. There is a verbal record of this, and what I believe actually happened is when Teller said, "I'm sorry," which I believe that he did, Oppenheimer replied, "I don't know what that means."
Oh, interesting.
Which I think is an interesting statement.
Yeah.
You know, like, what are you apologizing for? What are you sorry for? What is it?
Right.
What is it you're saying? You know?
Right. Are you sorry for the things you said? Or are you sorry because you said these things to curry favor? Or you said these things to screw me over because you want Strauss in your corner? Yeah.
But in the movie world, Oppenheimer did shake his hand, and Kitty is not pleased.
You shook his fucking hand? Oh, I would have spit in his face.
I'm not sure the board would have appreciated that.
Is it not gentlemanly enough for you? Well, I think you're all being too goddamn gentlemanly.
I love Emily Blunt.
Oh, yeah. Excellent. Excellent. And you need that energy. You need that energy because sometimes people are too gentlemanly.
Yeah.
And there are certain things are allowed to exist longer than they need to. Pain, hurt, destruction, death, all this stuff exists longer because everyone's trying to be gentlemanly. And it's like, no, sometimes you have to say, cut it the fuck out. You wake up and shake the tree a little bit, you know?
Well, to me, like, I believe in playing the game by the rules. And I also know that all games, people push the rules and manipulate the rules, and they'll kind of try to push the system. And there is a certain point at which you have now broken the game.
Yeah.
And at that point, then, I'm with you. All bets are off. The problem is knowing when you hit that point. You know, is that where are, and by the way, you know, politically in this world today, I'm just going to say it. I, the rule follower, am like, we're real close to that point if we haven't already passed it. So, you know, like, you know, these are where we need to ask these questions.
Yep.
And you shaking Teller's hand. You need to stop playing the martyr.
I think she understands her husband maybe better than anybody else and better than any of us, you know?
Right. Yeah.
By the way, one thing I want to point out, the aging makeup in this film is incredible.
Yeah.
You know, you've often talked about what are the greatest going from a young man to an old man. And I know you always reference Excalibur, what's his name? King Arthur.
Yeah.
And of course, Orson Welles in Citizen Kane is one of the great
100%.
ones. I think we met Oppenheimer when he's in his early 20s.
Yeah,
you know, and we're going to see him much older. And the thing is, this is on IMAX, which means the detail level is so high. They had to get special glasses that were like, you know, magnifying glasses for the makeup artists. They called them the IMAX glasses, so they could look super close at the detail and make sure they're getting it right. And I think the age makeup is flawless in this film.
Yeah, I agree with you. Especially when we get to that end moment with Lyndon Johnson and everyone's coming up to shake their hands. Yeah.
And now we go to answer a question that was posed 2 hours ago in the film and 3 parts ago for us, which is 3 parts ago. They asked General Groves if he would approve Oppenheimer today. And he said, well, can I see the new regulations? They handed him the new regulations. Now, finally, we're going to hear him answer the damn question.
Under my interpretation of the Atomic Energy Act, which did not exist when I hired Dr. Oppenheimer in 1942, I would not clear him today if I were on the commission.
Good. Thank you, General. That is all.
But I don't think I'd clear any of those guys.
That's the part they don't want to hear.
Right. Which is why Roger Robb stops him and is like...
And you wouldn't want to leave this board with any suggestion today that you're here questioning his basic loyalty to the United States and the operation of Los Alamos.
By no means. I hope I didn't lead anyone to believe otherwise for an instant.
So that's a good lawyer move. He came in and kind of saved it a little bit.
Yeah.
But this is so unfair. Would he pass the security test that didn't exist at the time that you hired him? Yeah. No, and neither would anybody else who worked on that bomb.
They're getting their shots in where they can, Steve. But as we're going to hear, this is pretty much a railroading that's happening, but they're entering this stuff into the record so that maybe posthumously people will look back on this and see what happened here, which is, of course, what we're exploring in this movie and what they explored in the book.
And unlike the moment with Teller, that little moment between Groves and Oppenheimer as he leaves, just that little smile, I think is really nice.
Yes, he cares for him. Yeah.
And Oppenheimer knows that he cares for him.
Right.
And Oppenheimer knows that Groves did the best he could for him, given the circumstances, the questions that he was asked, and that he was honest about it.
Yeah.
We're outside, and Kitty is running a little late, and we realize that she is about to testify.
Do you even want her here?
Only a fool or an adolescent presumes to know someone else's relationship, and you're neither, Lloyd. Kitty and I, we're grown-ups. We've walked through fire together. She'll do fine.
Yeah, and I love the montage of going to these certain moments in the movie that we've seen with them together, and the music building up as this starting to have this pulsating rhythm to it going on underneath this. It's almost like we're leading to another explosion, so to speak. And so it's great the way it's hyping this moment up,
Well, this is what Nolan does so well is there's all of these threads that he's keeping going, and one of them has been Kitty. And her objections to how Robert is handling it, how angry she is, how much she hates Strauss. There's all and Garrison's reluctance to put her on the stand. Is all building to the, oh shit, what's going to happen?
Right.
And in my opinion, this scene does not disappoint.
Nope.
Will you describe your views on communism as pro, anti, neutral?
Very strongly against. I've had nothing to do with communism, and since 1936, since before I met Robert.
And there's a very, I would say, a self-contained energy from Emily Blunt at this point. And we're going to intercut this again with Hill, who is talking about how the Gray Board railroaded Oppenheimer. Mm-hmm. So he is discussing the thing that we are also witnessing at the same time.
If I were on the Gray Board, I would have protested against the tactics of the man who served, in fact, as the prosecuting counsel, a man appointed not by the board, but by Lewis Strauss.
Who was this?
Roger Robb.
Yeah.
So you're intercutting to hype the bad guy in the Gray Board before he makes his big move on Kitty.
Building up the battle, for sure.
And I think, just as Emily Blunt does not disappoint, I think Jason Clarke as Rob doesn't disappoint.
Roger Robb, yeah.
Now he starts asking about her Communist Party membership card.
I'm not sure.
Not sure.
Well?
And she seems a bit confused and hesitant in answering these questions. And I am having the feeling at this moment of like, oh shit, was Garrison right? should we not have put her on the stand?
Can a distinction be made between Soviet communism and communism?
Well, in the days when I was a member, I thought they were definitely two things.
Oh?
I thought that the Communist Party of the United States was concerned with our domestic problems. I now no longer believe this. I believe the whole thing's linked together and spread all over the world, and I have believed this since I left the party 16 years ago.
But
17 years ago. My mistake.
But you said...
Sorry, 18.
Why do you love this moment so much? Because I do too. What is it about the years?
Because Kitty's been studying him the whole time. Remember, she's been in that room. She knows what's going on here. Kitty's smart. Kitty has lived a life dealing with blowhard men who are how can I say, who have outsized opinions of themselves, right? And so she's prepared for this battle. And she's laying traps that he doesn't see coming because he's too busy thinking about the traps he's trying to lay for her.
Yeah.
And in this moment, the 17, 18, this is her way of like unsettling him because she's cutting him off in the middle of trying by correcting the numbers, correcting the actual years. Because Roger Robb doesn't care about the actual years in terms of the amount of time. But she's going, by doing this, she's essentially saying, I do remember, and these are the numbers, and I'm throwing you off by cutting you off halfway through your sentence. And it unsettles him because no one else has been able to hit this to him in the movie that we've seen. And so you see he's the one getting emotional when he's been trying to get an emotional reaction from her as this progresses. And as you said earlier about Emily Blunt, like, this is why you cast Emily Blunt for a scene like this, because those eyes of hers are incredible in every movie she's in. And in this movie, when she knows she's got Roger Robb, the almost smirking confidence in her eyes is amazing. And this is the beginning of her yanking him into the quicksand of her trap. You know?
Yep. It's like she's ramping up. You know what I mean? Like she's a little thrown at the beginning, and now we're going to see what Oppenheimer knew she had in her. You know what I mean? That if she gets pushed, she's going to push back.
Are you familiar with the fact your husband was making contributions to the Spanish Civil War as late as 1942?
I knew that Robert gave money from time to time.
Did you know this money was going into Communist Party channels?
Don't you mean through?
I love that she gets him on a grammar thing.
Pardon?
I think you mean through Communist Party channels, don't you?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
And you could see Garrison is like, oh
yeah.
I like this.
Yeah. And Oppenheimer's like, I told you, bitch.
Exactly.
Yes.
Then would it be fair to say that this meant that by 1942, your husband had not stopped having anything to do with the Communist Party? You don't have to answer that yes or no. You can answer that any way you wish.
I know that. Thank you. It's your question. It's not properly phrased.
Do you understand what I'm getting at?
I do.
And why don't you answer it that way?
Because I don't like your phrase.
It's so great because we've been watching Robert get just slapped around for the whole time he's been sitting here. So having Kitty fight back in this moment.
Having anything to do with the Communist Party, because Robert never had anything to do with the Communist Party as such. I know he gave money to Spanish refugees. I know he took an intellectual interest in communist ideas.
There are two types of communists. Intellectual communists and your plain old regular commie.
Well, I couldn't answer that one.
And the old guy there goes, who's loving this whole thing, I couldn't either.
And by the way, he's the only one that votes for Oppenheimer when we get to that moment near the end. But like, this is an acting class. If you're watching this as an actor or a young actor, study this back and forth. Study what's going on here. Study what Emily Blunt is doing with the inflections of her voice, how she dips into the lower register in order to hammer home certain points. It's your phrase. It's those things of like, there's a sense of power and condescension to Rob. And Rob is trying to, in essence, mansplain her. Even him saying like, you can answer it any way you want.
Yeah.
Like he's doing her a courtesy. She's like, bitch, I know I can answer it however the fuck I want. I don't need you to give me permission on how to answer this thing. You know, so there's him trying to be powerful and her yanking the chair out from under him constantly in this back and forth to the point where she gets a reaction from one of the people on the board there who is going to make a final decision organically, you know, and it's a brilliant move. And Rob knows he's in trouble at this point.
if anybody looked at any of our lives and examined the minutia, you know, I was just telling you a story off mic about a conflict with another person that happened with me. And if I had been brought before the gray board and everyone had to testify about every fucking detail about what happened, a lawyer could easily make me look bad or make the other side look bad. All of us could be made to look really bad. And that is what she's fighting against, you know?
Yeah.
The other thing to point out here is, as far as I know, this is not dialogue written by Christopher Nolan. This is all transcript out of the thing. This is what Kitty actually said. And so the directing and the acting and all of that stuff, making this dramatic and giving it all these stakes and this beat work, that's kind of amazing. You know, that they looked at, because I don't know how many transcripts of court proceedings you've looked for, but they're not generally that dramatic, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Robert, you can't win this thing. It's a kangaroo court with a predetermined outcome. Why put yourself through more of it? I have my reasons.
I have my reasons is one of those lines, like, I mean, it's really what the whole movie is about, is what are Robert's reasons?
Yeah.
You know?
It's very much for us to decide what we think his reasons are, you know, even with Kitty later confronting him about this stuff. What were his reasons, right? And then I think we're about to get Einstein coming in with his opinions on what he should be doing.
He has a point.
I'm not sure you understand, Albert.
No? I left my country never to return. You served your country well. If this is the reward she offers you, then perhaps you should turn your back on her.
Damn it, I happen to love this country.
Then tell them to go to hell.
I think this exchange is so important because too many times we get caught up in this idea that if you criticize the United States, you're not an American or you're not a faithful American. And there's nothing more of a false statement than that. You can criticize your parents, you can criticize your family, you still love them. You can criticize your country and still love it. And him sitting here saying, damn it, I love this country. I'm not going to walk away. I'm not going to leave this country. I'm not going to abandon this country because there are principles I believe in, and that's what I'm standing for and fighting for here in this situation, you know? And Albert says what he says, but it's a different thing for him to have left. He also left because he had goals and things he wanted to do and aspired to, and the fascination of America. So it's different in this situation because Robert is so devoted to the country, you know, and what he did. Yes, it was in service of his ego. Of course, we've covered that, but it was also in service to protect this country, to save this country from the Nazis initially, even though they dropped it on the Japanese people. But that's important to have this. And I think this intellectual back and forth is such an important part of the movie, why I love the movie as much as I do, because these kinds of concepts, I think for me are like, they're like drugs for me. It's stuff to chew on. And I really love it in a movie when it's written well and it's performed well in the back and forth. And this is that rare moment of like actual emotion from Robert for him to say like, damn it, I love this country.
Two thoughts. The first is there are few phrases that make me angrier and that I think are less American than if you don't love America, then get the hell out. I hate that. I think sometimes the most profound act of love you could do for a country is to criticize it.
Yeah.
That is the first thought. The second thought is just, you know what I was saying before about there's a time when people are pushing the rules of the game and there's a time when the game is broken and it's hard to know which one is which. There is a time where you absolutely should stay and fight for your country to be what it can be and be what it should be, even when you think it's doing things that are wrong. Mm-hmm. And there's times where the Jews have to get the hell out of Germany, you know, and knowing which one you're in and where you are is real tough. Back to the Strauss black and white world, and they are going back to the offices from the committee, and Strauss is pissed.
Interestingly enough, it's no longer a confirmation hearing. It's now a trial. About a trial.
It's not good he's telling everyone you initiated the hearings.
He can't prove a goddamn thing. He certainly can't prove that I gave the file to Gordon.
We're not in court, sir. There's no burden of proof.
Right, they're not convicting. Just denying.
He knows all about this because he set one of these things up.
Why would Hill come here to tear me down? What's his angle?
Do people need a reason to do the right thing?
And in Strauss's mind, yes. People only do things for angles.
Like I said, do a little bit of research before we get into this last section of the show. I was looking at Strauss and some of the things that people had said about him. One of the comments that struck out to me is one of his fellow commissioners at the AEC said, if you disagree with Lewis about anything, he assumes you're just a fool at first, but if you go on disagreeing with him, he concludes you must be a traitor.
Yeah.
And so this is the thing. And I think the shoe salesman thing is an overdeveloped sense of like, everyone's against me. I'm not as smart as everyone else, but I think I am smarter than everyone else. And all these like hoity-toities who think they're smarter than me, they're not. And so he has an overdeveloped sense of victimhood. And so in this moment, as you said so well, Steve, he is thinking that Hill has an intention motivated by Oppenheimer to undercut him. And as Ehrenreich tries to tell him, well, it could just be that he's doing the right thing in his mind about what's going on. It's like, that can't be possible. Everyone's against me or with me. There is no middle ground. And hence the black and white every time from his perspective, you know?
I mean, we hear a lot in this world today about the importance of loyalty. Who is loyal to who and what? And it's funny. Like, I think loyalty in general is a good thing. It is the second word. It's the second thing in the Scout law after trustworthy. Trustworthy, loyal, hopeful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. That is the Scout law, my friends. And and don't make me do the Scout oath.
Please don't. I was only in for 3 months and I couldn't handle it. So go ahead. Yes. Go ahead. Yes.
So it is an important thing, but in Strauss's mind, everything is about you are either on Team Strauss or you are an enemy to Team Strauss. All things are about that is how things work. And to me, that's not how things work at all. If you and I have many opinions that are similar, and there are some things where you and I disagree. If I disagree with you, I'm not being disloyal to you. That has nothing to do with our friendship, with our partnership, with anything else.
Yeah.
It's that I happen to disagree with you about this thing. That's it. I don't think Oppenheimer ever did anything particularly to destroy Strauss. I think he did his things because he thought that was the thing he should do. For whatever reason, he had an entirely different set of goals and rules in his mind.
Oppenheimer poisoned the scientists against me right from that first meeting. I don't know what Oppenheimer said to him that day, but Einstein wouldn't even meet my eye.
And again, we're back at that meeting.
Oppenheimer knows how to manipulate his own. And at Los Alamos, he preyed on the naivete of scientists who thought they get a say in how we use their work. They'll never think he was that naive himself.
Did we ever see Oppenheimer play to the naivete of scientists?
No, but this is a man obsessed in a personal battle with another man. So every action the other man takes must be seen through an evil prism in order to validate the anger he has at the man, right?
Yeah.
So everything Robert does through his prism, he sees it as, oh, he's got nefarious reasons, nefarious purposes. You don't fall for that bullshit. He always knew. And those are the things that drive you crazy. And clearly Strauss is crazy with anger, jealousy, and bitterness at Oppenheimer.
It's funny, the personal conflict I was discussing with you off mic, one of the most frustrating things to me was to hear what these other people said my motivations were back to me. You know, there are certain things that happen, but listening to other people's conclusions about what you felt and why you did what you did is almost always bullshit.
Yeah, it's frustrating. Yeah, I agree.
So we've just had some good moments. We had Hill start to take down Strauss. Strauss is starting to get angry and upset. And we saw Kitty go toe-to-toe with Roger Robb, and we loved it. Yeah. And now things are going to start turning back the other way.
During your work on the hydrogen bomb, were you deterred by any moral qualms?
Yes, of course.
But you still got on with your work, didn't you?
Yes, because this was work of exploration. It was not the preparation of a weapon.
You mean it was more of an academic excursion?
No, it is not an academic thing. Whether you can build a hydrogen bomb, it's a matter of life and death.
So I don't know what Robert is saying here. And I don't think Robert knows what he's saying here.
I think he's splitting the hairs in the way that makes sense to him logically, right? Whether they make sense to us watching it logically, I don't know. And I think that's all to a different person, or everyone's different opinion, right? But I think he's trying to split the hairs in a way to say like, well, for him, it was scientific, the approach. It was not, he's trying to say it was not in the pursuit of a weapon to arm a country to be able to subjugate the world. It was supposed to be an exploration to see if we could do this. And that was the approach I had, right? Which of course is a little bit naive to think that you giving a weapon to a superpower that they wouldn't use it, right? But this is what he's trying to, in essence, say. And I think Roger Robb is trying to put a negative spin on it the whole time to make it seem that it was ridiculous that he didn't know what he was doing, and that why didn't he have the moral qualms then that he has now, right? Which I think is a fair argument to make, because we saw him get confronted with people who weren't on board with them building the weapon, and even had meetings to try to say we shouldn't drop these on these bombs on the Japanese because we built them to attack the Nazis. You know,
I mean, what this exposes, and I think what the movie says is that the hairs that Robert Oppenheimer is trying to split are not splittable. There is no solution where you can go, because you think about how
this is the atom that he can't split. This is the one atom that he can't split. Yeah.
Well, and you think about like, what is the moment at which he started working on the hydrogen bomb? Well, the moment is when Teller is quitting Los Alamos. Right. He is trying to walk out, and the way that Oppenheimer gets him to stay is by saying 1 hour a week, you work on whatever you want, and 1 hour a week I will help you. So that's when he starts researching the hydrogen bomb. But it's in the midst of this decision of building the atomic bomb, all the pressure he's under, all the communist pressure. Teller is a great scientist, but he's disruptive, and he makes this. And Robert is a scientist academically, he wants to know if it's possible because it's an interesting scientific question. And so there's all this complex web of why he made the decision in 1942. And now in the gray board, we're trying to get some clear, definitive answer. You know, do you have moral qualms or did you not? And there's not a way of answering it.
So when did these moral qualms become so strong that you actively oppose the development of the hydrogen bomb?
When it was suggested that it be the policy of the United States to make these things at all costs without regard to the balance between these weapons and atomic weapons as part of our arsenal.
The thing that you can't get, again, doing a little bit of research and reading about these back and forths, like Oppenheimer was not against the hydrogen bomb. He was against the hydrogen bomb because it could only be used in large cities. And I think that was where, again, the splitting of the hairs. Like, I want to make a bomb. He wanted to keep making the atom bombs that he did, but because they could be used in smaller numbers. But the hydrogen bomb, in his mind, could only be used in the big cities, so he couldn't 100% support the hydrogen bombs. It was. I don't think people should get confused. It wasn't that he was against nuclear bombs or nuclear or those existing. It was more about how, as we've seen through the movie, that he wanted to serve as a deterrent, not as something to strive to have in order to, threaten war. And I think this is important that's why he's talking about this with the hydrogen bomb. It's not practical and all that. It's because it could only be dropped on big cities, which would cause massive numbers of casualties,
But that's not what he says here. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I think that is a more justifiable and reasonable response. But this thing that he said about the balance between how many of these and how many of those is like, again, this is what Rob says.
What do moral qualms have to do with that?
What did moral qualms have to do with it?
Yes.
He can't answer it either. Yeah.
I mean, it's what he's done the whole movie is that a scientist says, hey, we're concerned about this. And he goes, I will present your qualms. But he doesn't really. I mean, if you're going to say, the reality is these are weapons capable of destroying every single human life on Earth. They are not military. A hydrogen bomb there's no target that exists that is a military target that it is fit for. It's exactly what you said. The only thing that it is fit for is mass murder, millions and millions. That's it. And so, to me, it's like, the hydrogen bomb is wrong. I don't know how we deal with the Cold War. I don't have an answer to the Russians, but I don't think we should have these things. That's a clear statement saying it's important to get the balance between atomic weapons and hydrogen weapons correct. There's some how. It's like, to me, that's like a, we only want to have so much slavery kind of argument. You know what I mean? Like, There's no balance that's correct.
Yeah.
And now we go to Strauss, who has his explanation of why Oppenheimer is doing it this way. And it has nothing to do with moral qualms or balances between weapons. He says,
Oppenheimer wanted to own the atomic bomb. He wanted to be the man who moved the earth. He talks about putting the nuclear genie back in the bottle. Well, I'm here to tell you that I know J. Robert Oppenheimer, and if he could do it all over, he'd do it all the same.
Do you think he would do it all over the same?
Well, yes, because he is who he is. So even though he's got the benefit of hindsight, I think the Oppenheimer-isms would still come into play, because I do think he played all sides in the scenario and in the situation to try to survive in the position that he was in and to achieve what they wanted to achieve. So yes, I do think he would do it all over again in the same way. I do think, however, that he might be more careful in how he dealt with Strauss. I think that would be different if he was to be able to do it all over again.
It's sort of an impossible question to answer because, of course, to me, it's like if he knew everything he knows about the future, I don't think he would do it all the same. For instance, if he knows, hey, by the way, the Nazis will be defeated before they make an atomic bomb, and an atomic bomb will not be necessary to defeat them, the entire motivation for why he started now wouldn't exist.
Not the entire motivation.
Not
because the ego was a
sure.
part. It was a massive part of that motivation as well.
I agree.
Well, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I think he has a big ego, but I don't think. Again, people don't look at the world the way I look at the world often. But to me, it's like your life post Los Alamos has been pretty shitty, Robert Oppenheimer. Like, there's a lot of pain that you've gone through that I would probably want to avoid.
You know, he's never once said that he regrets Hiroshima. He'd do it all over. Why? Because it made him the most important man who ever lived.
I don't think he's wrong. I don't think he's I said this. I don't think he's 100% wrong. And I think the film does a really good job of, like, in this moment showing you Strauss's clearly unhinged obsession with Oppenheimer. But also, what he's saying is not wrong about Oppenheimer, because, as I've said, in my opinion, I think his ego is a massive part of him doing this. And if he had to do it all over again, he would do it all over again, because to remove his status as creating the atomic bomb is to remove his importance to the world. And as we saw throughout the movie, Robert was driven to do something incredible with his life and to stand out. And this was his way of doing it. And so I think it would be very hard for him not to resist the temptation to create this bomb all over again, because would he be okay with not ever being famous, not ever having that strong of a legacy, and being just lumped in with all these other scientists that we don't make movies about, right? Because there's a lot of intelligent people in this movie that we'll never see a movie about. And, and so it's an interesting thing to consider in this moment.
I want to table this discussion for the moment, because I think we're going to have to readdress it when we get to the final moment of the movie. Because it's how seriously, because part of what's happening is, I think we agree that Oppenheimer had a bunch of motivations, and they're complicated and interwoven. And so which one becomes the most important? And this led me to quick trademark Cine-Files 2026 movie idea. The great person who wanted to do good things in the world, this is the entire pitch that I have so far, realizes that in the end, their actions would lead to the destruction of the world or some horrible tragedy. And they get a DeLorean to go back in time. And the question is, do they kill their younger self in order to stop themselves from doing the terrible thing that is going to happen?
Interesting. Okay.
So trademark 2026 Cine-Files. We will be taking meetings, John and I, with any studio that wants to buy.
I think this is a sitcom that's on right now called Stewart Fails to Save the Universe. But
is that what that's about?
He goes back in time to stop himself from doing something.
I literally had no idea that's what it was about.
Listen, it's not a good show. I'm not advocating for anybody to watch the show, but I think there's elements of that premise in there. Be curious if you ever see it, Steve, and see what you think.
And now they're pushing him on the deaths.
We freely used the atomic bomb.
In fact, Doctor, you assisted in selecting the target to drop the atomic bomb on Japan, didn't you?
Yes.
Well, then you knew, did you not, that by dropping that atomic bomb on the target you selected, that thousands of civilians would be killed or injured. Is that correct?
Yes, not as many as turned out.
Oh. How many were killed or injured?
70,000.
70,000 at both Hiroshima and...
110,000 in both.
On the day of each bombing?
Yes.
And in the weeks and years that followed?
It has been put at somewhere between 50 and 100,000.
220,000 dead at least.
Yes.
Any moral scruples about that?
Terrible ones.
Terrible Ones is one of the few moments that he actually says what he feels.
Yes.
You know?
There's a pause, and he looks right at Roger Robb and says that. And what I think is great about this sequence here, and this as you're building and ramping up to it, Steve, is there's the music, and then we're hearing the stamping of the feet again.
Yep.
And I think we're building to, which is what we get visually, another test explosion. And we'll see that in a little bit. But like, it's the way Nolan builds us through this moment. You know, it's just like A Few Good Men. Did you give the code? Did you have? I don't have to answer it. I'll answer the question. Did you give? Yes, I ordered the code. Ran it. Damn right. And, I do it again. And so that's what we're building to in this back and forth between Roger Robb and Oppenheimer. But Oppenheimer is a much more frazzled witness than, say, Colonel Jessup was until that last exchange with Tom Cruise's character.
But yet you testified in here that the bombing of Hiroshima was very successful.
Technically successful.
Oh, technically it was very successful.
These are the things where our methods of debate, which is finding a flaw in somebody's argument, ends up obscuring the reality.
Right.
The bomb was technically successful. That's a fact, you know. And what I think's really hard about this thing is there is a reason that most of us are just cogs in a machine. That each person, there's, the guy on the Enola Gay who dropped the actual bomb. There's the person who put fuel in the Enola Gay. There's the person who radioed the order. There's the person who transported the bomb. There's all of these people who's just one cog in the machine that led to this. The only person who really decided is Harry Truman.
As he reminded us earlier.
As he reminded us. Is that, and the thing is, there is, like, I was only following orders is, one of the great, horrible, guilty lines of history. But the reality is that is what you want in a military organization. Is
100%.
That you don't want each cog in the machine to have to make the moral determination about whether or not each action is correct.
Yeah.
Oppenheimer is correct in the sense, and what he was told, what happened with Groves, I'll keep you informed as best I can. Is that Oppenheimer's job was to create that bomb. That was his only job. He was technically successful. Trying to interrogate his moral qualms at this moment, is neither here nor there, I would say.
You're absolutely right, Stephen. The thing is, with this situation, though, we're not seeking understanding. Roger Robb has clearly been tasked to paint Robert's answers with the worst meaning that he can, and to constantly try to contradict him and undercut him and scoff at him, all on purpose. And for those who don't know, Roger Robb was a very seasoned and experienced lawyer who had actually defended a communist in his past, which is ironic, Earl Browder, the leader of the Communist Party in 1950. Well, I guess when we're doing, a few years before this thing happened. And then he was selected to be a part of this stuff and went after him, and so he is a very seasoned prosecutor and seasoned person. So he clearly had a job to do here, and he's doing it in a certain way to paint Oppenheimer to look like a bad person in all of this, and that his answers are seen as convenient answers rather than authentic answers. He's not seeking understanding. He's seeking to destroy Robert.
Yep. He's trying to find, and that's what you do. That's what a prosecuting attorney does is find a weakness in the person's argument.
Even though we keep being told that this is not a trial.
Would you have been supportive of the dropping of a hydrogen bomb on Hiroshima?
That would make no sense at all.
Why?
The target is too small.
Well, supposing there had been a target in Japan big enough for a thermonuclear weapon, would you have been opposed to the dropping of it?
This was not a problem with which I was confronted.
Well, I'm confronting you with it now, sir.
By the way, the whole time this is happening, behind Robert, the walls are shaking like they did when he went through his mental health episode at the beginning of the movie. It's very similar. He's going back into this place and he's feeling attacked and pressured. It's almost like a panic attack shown through the prism of a medium of film as he's experiencing this, which is, of course, very similar to what he experienced with the high school crowd or whoever it was in that high school gymnasium stomping their feet. The walls are shaking, everything's reverberating, and we're leading to this moment where we're going to get the same flash that covers him when they're testing the bomb out in Los Alamos. It's a fascinating approach by Nolan to give you a very similar feeling that we saw earlier in the movie.
Well, and he's established this cinematic language that he now can dip into to give us a sense of Oppenheimer's emotional state.
He wanted the glorious, insincere guilt of the self-important to wear like a fucking crown. Say, no, we cannot go down this road, even as he knew we'd have to.
Here's where I do totally agree with Strauss. I see Oppenheimer's motivations. He doesn't have single motivations to me. He has a very complicated mix of all of these feelings. But in this particular case, if you believe that we shouldn't develop the hydrogen bomb or that it's wrong, then you should say it. If you feel guilt about what you did at Los Alamos and the 200,000 deaths, so you should talk about that. I mean, it isn't easy. It's terrible and awful. It's something we hear about all the time. It's like people just totally unwilling to apologize or say, I messed up. It is so rare to hear in our world. And the reason where I agree with Strauss is he did want to keep his image. He wanted to dip his toes in the area of doing the right thing and being a moral person without corrupting his reputation and who he was. He didn't want to put himself really out there.
Again, as we've said multiple times, Steve, playing all sides in order to seem like the good guy in all of this.
And now it's getting super intense at the gray board with all of the effects, the shaking as you described, the flashing light. At one point, he starts to smoke. It is absolutely wild what's going to go on.
Would you have been opposed to the dropping of a thermonuclear weapon on Japan because of moral scruples?
Yes, I believe I would, sir.
Or did you oppose the dropping of an atomic bomb on Hiroshima because of moral scruples?
We set forth our...
No, you. I'm asking you.
I set forth our arguments against dropping it, but I did not endorse them.
Again, I agree with Rob to some degree. I don't agree with what's happening. But him going, we put forth our arguments, the royal we, is him not taking responsibility.
Right.
And also we know he never really did put forth those arguments, at least not in this film.
And but he also never really selected the targets. He was in the room when the targets were selected, but it's not like he selected Hiroshima or Nagasaki. The Secretary of War did, or Secretary of Defense did. And then you see the situation here with this. You're right. It's like he's trying to cover himself and play both sides. And at this point, he did have some active part of this, but he's unwilling to concede that he had an individual approach to it.
You mean after working night and day for 3 years building the bomb, you then argued against the use of it?
I was asked by the Secretary of War what the views of scientists were. I gave him the views against and the views for.
Which he totally didn't. He never did. In this movie, we never saw him put forth those views.
Yeah. Well, no, he tried to, right? Remember? And then Grove shuts him down.
Yes.
Because some members of the scientific community, and Grove's like, everyone's on board. And he just kind of cut him off. But he didn't push to present those views, right? Which I think is your inherent point, is that he didn't advocate one way or the other. He didn't present them irregardless of whether they tried to shut him down or not. He was willing to be shut down, and he acquiesced to the shutting down. And he's not admitting to that here in this moment.
I mean, whether it was voluntary or not voluntary, he did not present those views.
Fair point, yeah.
You supported the dropping of the atom bomb on Japan.
What do you mean
didn't
support?
you? Supported it.
What do you mean support?
Well, you helped pick the target, didn't you?
I did my job. I was not in a policy-making position at Los Alamos. I would have done anything I was asked to do.
Well, then you would have built the H-bomb too, wouldn't you?
It's so hard because every sentence contains its own contradictions and its own, I would have done anything I was asked to do. That's a messed up thing to say,
I think they're both manipulating the truth to serve their narratives, both of them, which I think is an uncomfortable thing to watch, but it's true. You're right. Because our tendency is to see him as a hero in this moment because he's been presented as the protagonist of the movie. But Roger Robb is calling him out correctly on some of the convenient reasonings for the positions that he's taken depending on the time frame and the circumstances. And so this back and forth, specifically that you just highlighted, Steve, is exposing that more and more as we go along through this interrogation.
And this is when he starts to smoke and there's more flashes, you know. And now we're starting to hear, as Rob kind of pounds the table, it starts to sound like explosions.
And the GAC report which you co-authored after the Soviet atomic test said a super bomb should never be built.
What I meant. What I meant.
Who? And wouldn't the Russians do anything to increase their strength?
And then the music drops out. And it's super intense. Oppenheimer comes back, says,
If we did it, they would have to do it. Our efforts would only fuel their efforts, just as it had with the atomic bomb.
Just as it had with the atomic bomb, exactly.
Lights are gone. The music is gone.
No moral scruples in 1945, plenty in 1949.
The idea that he had no moral scruples in 45 and plenty in 49, we saw him have moral scruples in 45. You know, like he wasn't just... He made the decision that we have to push forward with the bomb. That he definitely did. He persuaded people, scientists who wanted to drop out after the end of the war in Europe. But I don't think that means he never had moral qualms, you know?
Well, the movie doesn't highlight him letting those moral qualms stop him or slow him down. And so there is an element of Nolan, in essence, calling out Oppenheimer through the script of this movie in this exchange with Roger Robb, even though Roger Robb is a problematic character because in this situation, he's not actually seeking the truth. He's seeking to destroy Oppenheimer. But in this exchange, he does get to a truth that Oppenheimer has, in essence, become vocally against the thing that he created, but wasn't against it while he was creating it. And so I think what's missing is an extra conversation about his ego. And I don't know why Nolan didn't put that in there, because I think that is you could add that because you can take creative license with this stuff. And I think that's an element that should have been explored more in the exchange between Roger Robb and Oppenheimer. How much of this is about your ego, your desire for this, your need to create this kind of stuff, you know? And so it's an interesting moment. And I wonder if this is a meta moment, Steve, in a lot of ways, because is this Nolan calling himself out through the guise of Oppenheimer for some of the things that he's done as a director and tried to play all sides to try to seem like the good guy? So it's a fascinating thing if you were to kind of break that down. If you knew Nolan personally and you knew who he was, like his interactions with people, his relationships with people, I wonder if you see this movie and this scene a little bit differently, and if there is a meta aspect to it all. Just putting it out there, you know?
I think when you are a leader, you are doing all sorts of things to manipulate reality. Whether it's, you know, you just got people who are trying to make dinner, you know, or whatever it is. You compliment some people when you see that they need a compliment. You push some people when you see they need to be pushed. You are doing all these things in order to achieve a certain goal. And the idea that someone would then go through and parse every motivation in every moment and every action to determine the morality of the whole thing it's just way more complicated than that, you know?
Yep. Yeah. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. It's funny you said, because I was watching watching the new season of Hard Knocks, the NFL, and they're profiling the team that won the Super Bowl last year. And, you know, the coach is saying all these different things about this is the reason we won the Super Bowl. This is these ethics, these codes, these principles, these things, as if no other team in the NFL follows almost the same similar codes or whatever. It really had nothing to do with it. You know, it's more a matter of like certain players played well in critical moments, certain referee decisions went your way, and you won the Super Bowl in the end. You know, and so it's just funny to see that kind of stuff. And so, as you said, as your leader, you convince yourself of certain things, and you convince everyone else of certain things, and you do it specifically and generally when leading.
Well, I would say my guess is there are a million things that went into winning the Super Bowl, and most of them are things that all the teams do. And what happens is, you know, it's like, you know, a lousy NFL team is better than every single college football team there is, right?
Yes.
And so they're doing everything really, really well, and they're losing, you know, 12 games. Like the two teams that make it to the Super Bowl, they're doing almost everything really, really, really well, and one team wins by 3 points. So people are always going like, well, what gave us those 3 points, that edge? Not thinking about the 9 million hours of practice and training and all these things that happened that got you to the point where you could be even to get 3 points ahead. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%, dude.
Dr. Oppenheimer, when did your strong moral convictions develop with respect to the hydrogen bomb?
When it became clear to me that we would tend to use any weapon we had.
That is a scary line.
Yep.
And I do think this is one where he is speaking a truth.
A truth he didn't want to face before. He is now speaking out into the record now. This idea that the country would use any weapon that it has if it develops it, right? Which a number of people tried to tell him throughout the movie, but he didn't want to hear it.
I think so, because there's this thing that I felt, which is that Robert Oppenheimer tended to see other people like they thought like Robert Oppenheimer. Yeah. Like they had these complex moral structures and loyalties and how everybody is supposed to. And therefore, just like the idea that he got from Niels Bohr is we need a really big weapon because then it will be the end of all war. He's thinking like the world is filled with rational people and they will see by the terribleness of this weapon that we can't have any more war. But now he discovered after World War II and the meeting with Truman and all these little moments that, the world is not filled with rational people. And there are people, whatever weapon we build, there is going to be somebody that wants to use it.
Yes.
And he did not know that before.
Yeah, right. Which I think you can create space for, right, Steve? Because, I mean, a nuclear bomb, that was not something you can conceive of in 1945 of being like something that I think I can create grace for that people were like, well, you wouldn't use this to destroy millions of people. And then when it's dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the reactions afterwards, I think that's a splitting of the world after those nuclear bombs are dropped, to know that there are human beings willing to drop something like that on a large populace, which most of them were non-military, if not almost all of them. And it's horrifying to think we could do that and how easily we can dispatch 200,000 people in order to win a war. You know, it's chilling. So I think Oppenheimer didn't realize that. And this is the moment where he kind of really blurts it out.
Do you know the term Homo economicus?
I've seen it written, but I don't know that I know the term and definition.
It is the idea that humans are rational creatures that will make economic decisions for rational reasons. So if something costs twice as much, but it's only 10% less better, you wouldn't spend that money because that you would only spend twice as much money on something that is twice as good. That would be a rational decision. And all of economic theory has proven over and over again, we are the farthest thing from rational creatures when it comes to how we spend money. The most obvious example of this is that why do things cost $9.99 and not $10? And the answer is because we are not rational. Because that 1 cent difference makes us significantly more likely to buy that thing. Because 999 is only 3 digits, whereas 10000 is 4 digits. It looks bigger. That must be a lot more money. I'm not going to buy it. We are not rational in any other part of our lives either. Like we make decisions for emotional and crazy reasons. And that is why I am very scared of people having nuclear bombs because we're not rational.
J. Robert Oppenheimer, the martyr. I gave him exactly what he wanted. To be remembered for Trinity. Not Hiroshima. Not Nagasaki. He should be thanking me.
Well, he's not.
I love the way he says that. Well, he's not.
Yeah. I love the turn that the aide that has made at this point. It's kind of gone into you're a dick. And I'm not going to hide the fact that I think you're a dick anymore.
Yeah, it's great.
And as we're nearing the decision in that trial, non-trial, we get the decision in this one.
Dr. J. Robert Oppenheimer, this board having heard testimony from you and many of your current and former colleagues, has come to the unanimous conclusion that you are a loyal citizen.
All right, done. Cool. He's won.
Yeah.
We can move on.
In the light of your continuing associations and disregard for the security apparatus of this country, together with your somewhat disturbing conduct on the hydrogen bomb program, we have voted 2-1 to deny the renewal of your security clearance.
These people were incredibly intelligent and accomplished people sitting in on this situation. I mean, look, Roger Robb is a guy who ends up becoming nominated by Nixon in '69 to a seat on the United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia. And he stays in that position until 1982 when he's replaced by Judge Antonin Scalia.
Oh.
And so, yeah. So this is a guy who was a lawyer for a very long time, connected with a number of people, went to Yale Law School, was an assistant U.S. attorney. And then you look at Gordon Gray. Gordon Gray is an incredibly accomplished man who did a number of things like owning newspaper publishing companies, owning radio stations, all of this stuff. He was one of the directors of the short-lived American network, FM radio network. He served in the North Carolina General Assembly from 39 to 43. He went into the Army in 42 as a private, rose to captain. He was in Europe with General Omar Bradley there. And then he went on to be the Assistant Secretary of the Army under Truman. And then 2 years later, he was appointed Secretary of the Army and then was appointed to chair this committee and then went on to do other things in academia, then went on to work for Eisenhower, be his national security advisor. He got the Presidential Medal of Freedom. He served on the President's Foreign Intelligence Advisory Board for John F. Kennedy, Lyndon B. Johnson, Richard M. Nixon, and Gerald Ford. So, I mean, these are the kinds of things, these are the kind of gentlemen that were in this room. It's a very intimidating room with incredibly intelligent, accomplished guys who would go on to do a number of things in our national security sphere, but also in our juris situations throughout their time in existence. So it's a daunting number of people to be in front of. But to know that these people were part of a railroading, a fixing, so to speak, I think is a really hard thing to accept, because that's what breaks my heart, is people who are really accomplished and intelligent participating in a sham like this and suffering no consequences for it. Steve, it breaks my heart, because I want to believe that intelligent, accomplished people want what's best for the world. And maybe they believe they were doing what was best by denying Oppenheimer, but the fix was in here from Strauss and his connections within the intelligence community and within the political community and within even the legal community, as we see and we discover in the movie, you know?
I have no evidence. First of all, that was really, really interesting. And I have no evidence of what I'm about to say, but knowing what we know about Strauss, how did he get these guys to do this gig? Well, my guess is he offered them some stuff.
Yeah, possibly.
Like that,
yes.
that he arranged an appointment, he arranged a job, he arranged a thing, or said, I can get the votes for whatever this thing that you want is, because that's how the game is played. And this is one of the key things, is that people tend to go, because in a democracy, everything is about getting elected. You can't do anything until you get power. So you have to get power. And if you believe in yourself as a good, like I should be president, or I should be a congressman, or I should be whatever, then whatever is necessary to do for you to get to be in the position that you need to get into is okay. In
your mind, it's
in
okay.
your mind.
Right.
Yeah. One other thing about this that is crazy to me is that Robert Oppenheimer's clearance was rescinded one day before it was due to expire.
So, this was all a petty kangaroo court to embarrass Robert Oppenheimer at the behest of Lewis Strauss. I mean, and even Strauss is a complicated guy. This guy was, as much as he got caught up, like he did a lot of things for the Jewish community, like exploring all the contributions, the buildings, the funds he set up, the organizations he set up to help so many Jewish people in this country and people who are suffering with disease and things of that nature. Like, that's what's frustrating about this, again, with people who are so accomplished getting involved in these petty situations. It kind of darkens their legacy or taints their legacy. And it's unfortunate because he did a lot of good things, Strauss, you know?
Well, and maybe he would say, the only way I was able to do those good things was to do these sort of underhanded things in order to get the power to do those good things.
You might be right. You might 100% be right. Yeah.
Robert on the phone.
Robert.
Don't they get the sheets?
Yeah.
Is it official?
Well, there were a couple of unexpected holdouts.
And then Robert Downey Jr. turns to him and says,
I'm denied. Yeah?
I'm afraid so, sir.
All right.
That is my favorite moment of acting from him in the entire film. There's something about him taking in that moment and the expression on his face and accepting that essentially accepting his whole life's purpose has now been stopped right before he was going to get the brass ring.
Yeah.
He has all of that in that. It's to me, it's an astounding acting moment. It really is.
Yeah, I agree. I think this, may have been the moment that won him the Oscar.
Yeah.
Because you just sense that instinctually.
Who were the holdouts?
There were 3, led by the junior senator from Massachusetts. Young guy trying to make a name for himself, didn't like what you did to Oppenheimer.
What's his name?
Kennedy. John F. Kennedy.
Strauss would totally know who Kennedy was. I don't believe this for a sec. I think it's in the movie because it's a great moment, but there's no way he doesn't know. Strauss knows the name of every single senator on that, not because it's Kennedy, but he knows every senator on that committee. He knows where their back is scratched. He knows their skeletons. That's who Strauss is.
I think it's a wink to the boomers, the boomer generation, which is Nolan's parents' generation, right? Or his parents, right? The Kennedy stuff, which people still revere him. But yeah, the vote was 46 to 49. Voting for Strauss were 15 Democrats and 31 Republicans. Voting against him were 47 Democrats and 2 Republicans. So you could argue there was bipartisan support for him and bipartisan support against him. And 2 of the nays were John F. Kennedy and Lyndon B. Johnson.
Oh.
So both of them voted against Strauss getting the position. So in case you thought it was just the uppity guy from Massachusetts, you also had the Southern boy in Lyndon B.
By the way, here's an important point of information that younger people may or may not know, but bipartisan votes was the norm up until about 30 years ago.
Shocking.
This idea that parties vote by party, this is a totally new thing. This is not like Antonin Scalia, who you mentioned a few minutes ago, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who were both total opposites and also really good friends who really, really liked each other, by the way. They were both approved by essentially the same Senate, and one was like 97 to 3 and the other one was 98 to 2. Like with this world that we live in today is not fucking normal for America. It's not how things are supposed to work.
It's not healthy for America either, for sure. Yeah.
No. And I'm going to shut up about it because otherwise this episode's going to go on and on and on. We could do a short on this sometime.
But I just want to say one last thing. It was the first time since Charles B. Warren in 1925 that a cabinet appointee failed to be confirmed by the Senate, and would be the last one until John Tower in 1989. I totally forgot about John Tower.
I remember that.
I was like, oh, wow.
Did you think that if you let them tar and feather you, the world would forgive you? It won't.
We'll see.
Here's a question from patron Adam McAllister.
Hey, Adam.
Who says, is Oppenheimer haunted by the bomb itself or by losing control of its legacy?
The second one. Because as I said, he, according to a number of people who detailed his life, he did not come out against nuclear bombs.
No.
It was about the losing of, as Adam said, the losing of the legacy there of the bomb, like having no control over it, which begins the moment they're successful with the test. It begins the loss of his power and control over the situation and the legacy of all of it. And his entire life afterwards is trying to desperately change that truth. And what he says to Kitty there at the end, at the end of the scene where she's like, we'll see, that's Robert once again playing all sides because He played this thing out in a certain way, possibly so that he could look a certain way to people like us and people like Christopher Nolan and the writers of the book later on in life. Like maybe he knew ahead, he knew to think farther ahead that he would be seen through a different light, through a different prism, as someone who was against this stuff. And so his creation of it would be a little less of a negative on his record. And the fact that he was against it would kind of balance that out. That might have been the thought process in going through this whole, as Kitty said, tar and feathering, you know?
So I would, to some degree, Adam, reject the premise of your question. And I
the
think
phrasing? Is it the phrasing?
It might be. I object to his phrasing. No, your phrasing was excellent. I don't object to the phrasing. And in a weird way, to me, and maybe this reveals a bit of, you know, what I'll say at the end is, I think the movie rejects the movie drives you to go, what is the answer? What is motivating? Is it guilt or is it this? Is it his ego or is it, you know, like what is it? What's motivating him? As if there is one answer. And I don't think there is one answer.
Yeah.
I think he is motivated by guilt and he is motivated by ego and he is motivated by losing control. And they're all swirling around in him, leading him to sometimes go a little to the guilt side and sometimes, but then he has to protect his ego and he's going back and forth. I don't think there's, I don't think I can get to the end of this movie and go, aha, I know the truth. I think that the truth is complicated.
Like most human beings, especially most accomplished human beings.
You told me I'd be okay.
Yeah, well, I didn't have all the facts, did I?
Here's the fact. President Eisenhower pinned the Medal of Freedom on my chest last year because I've always done what's right for this country. They don't want me in the cabinet room. Well, that's fine. Maybe they should just invite Oppenheimer instead.
Maybe they will.
His whining at this point. This is what you, by the way, this is one thing we don't get from Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer he doesn't whine. He'll take it, you know?
Yeah.
But, and the line Strauss, I've always done what's right for this country. And I bet Strauss believes that.
I think he believed it to his dying day.
Yeah.
Yes.
And all the little petty, you know, manipulative stuff is, and the reason all those things, those mean and nasty manipulative things he did were right for the country was because it is right for Strauss to be on that cabinet. Therefore, they are all correct because I am, you know, you talk about an ego. I mean, Strauss has as big an ego and wants to be perceived as much as Oppenheimer does.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
100%. 100%.
He turned the scientists against me one by one, starting with Einstein. I told you about that. Einstein by the pond.
I mean, I'm sure we've all had friends and probably been this person at some point where people keep going back to the same fucking thing. And you're just like, move on, dude.
But, you know, sir, since nobody really knows what they said to each other that day, is it possible they didn't talk about you at all? Is it possible they spoke about something more important?
That's cold, man.
Such a dagger. Essentially saying it ain't about you. Essentially saying that, yeah.
And then Strauss has to take that in and then walk out and face the reporters.
Bro, watch this moment again, everybody. When he takes that moment in, then he slaps a plastic smile on his face and walks out the door. And he looks right at the aide when he launches his big smile because he's like, all right, time to play this role here for this moment. But yeah. Political animal through and through, Strauss.
So Robert Downey Jr. described this moment that we're now going back to as the rosebud of this film. And I think that is accurate, is that we go back to this moment of the hat being blown off. By the way, the timing makes no sense at all because there's, in the way that we saw the scene originally, its hat gets blown off and immediately Albert is walking towards Strauss. But here we actually have a whole conversation after the hat's going off but it doesn't matter. But this is a nitpick. It's an amazing moment in the movie.
In Berkeley, you gave me an award.
Yes.
You all thought that I had lost the ability to understand what I'd started. So the award really wasn't for me. It was for all of you.
First of all, before we even get to the rest of the scene, I think that's a fascinating thought.
I agree. Right? Peter O'Toole broke this down when they tried to give him a Lifetime Achievement Award at the Oscars. He goes, who's this for? I'm still working. You know, in this sense, yeah, absolutely. Awards are for other people to feel good about giving something to recognize what other people have done. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, but certainly it is not about necessarily recognizing them. It's about showing how much you recognize them.
By the way, this is just a quote from Einstein, who said after they rescinded Oppenheimer's clearance, he said that the AEC actually stands for the Atomic Extermination Conspiracy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now it's your turn to deal with the consequences of your achievement. And one day, when they've punished you enough, they'll serve you salmon and potato salad.
Oh, God.
And we cut to exactly that. It's exactly what he described. Again, the older makeup is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
And we see, I think it's LBJ presenting the Medal of Freedom
100%.
on Robert Oppenheimer. And then up walks Frank, who says to him exactly the same word Robert said when he disapproved of the marriage.
You're happy, unhappy.
And I think all that history is in that line. And I think Oppenheimer hears all that history.
Yep.
So I discovered something about Frank Oppenheimer that I never knew that has to do with my childhood. When I was a kid, the best museum field trip you could take in the San Francisco Bay Area was to go to a museum called the Exploratorium. The Exploratorium is a science museum, like a kid's science museum. It is the best one I've ever been to. I went there. It moved about 10 years ago to a different place. I took Jackson there when he was 5, and it's the best. I love this. I love this museum so much. I was always a sciencey, nerdy kid, and this was, you climb things and grab things and look through giant lenses, and there were echo chambers and dark things. It was the coolest museum in the world, and only researching this movie did I find out that the founder of the Exploratorium in San Francisco is Frank Oppenheimer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
tentacles and tentacles, man.
So cool. Such a cool place.
Yeah.
We see Robbie is there. Yeah. Lawrence is there, pats him on the shoulder. And we see Teller, and they shake hands. And then Teller turns to Kitty. And the fucking look from Emily Blunt with the little lip twitch.
Yes, I'm so glad you said that, Steve. That lip twitch is everything. The lower jaw essentially being like, bitch, put your hand away. It's amazing.
I mean,
amazing. And shout out to Betty Safdie. Great acting to receive that rejection as well.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
I mean, people think about acting as saying dialogue. It's like, I can say dialogue. I could never do what Emily Blunt does with that to him. Amazing.
Literally the human embodiment of dismissed. Oh, man, it was amazing.
Pat you on the back, tell you all is forgiven. Just remember, it won't be for you. It'll be for them.
I think Albert so beautifully explodes when, Kitty says the thing about hoping you'll forgive you. They're never going to forgive you. And he says, we'll see. I think Albert's explosion of that is like, yeah, maybe they will. Maybe you will get a medal, but it's not going to be for you. It's going to be for them.
It won't be to absolve you. It'll be to make themselves feel better. Right.
Yep. And it's so funny, whatever important political figure dies, even some really hated ones.
Yeah.
People say nice things about them, because that's what you do.
Yeah. It's almost like we just had that happen recently. Yeah.
And now we're back to the scene with Albert, the rosebud moment. He turns, sees water, droplets of water hitting the pond in front of them, and says,
Albert, when I came to you with those calculations, we thought we might start a chain reaction that would destroy the entire world.
I remember it well. What happened?
And he's super intense and says,
I believe we did.
And we hear the rise of those stomping feet. And Albert turns away. We see him walking towards Strauss. We now finally have the explanation that this wasn't about Strauss at all. And we see Oppenheimer's eyes, and there's the moment of him flying in the plane from the Borden story. We see all these images, the missiles flying by. We see a world on fire, bombs spreading across the earth as our planet is engulfed in flames. And that is the end of Oppenheimer.
What an incredible ending moment to leave you with a lesson for yourself to take with you. And it's subjective. Whatever lesson you're learning from this movie by the end of that movie is your lesson. And there's so much in that moment that I think is amazing. Because even Einstein, the Tom Conti, performance is amazing as Einstein. That moment where he takes a pause to take in what Oppenheimer has just said to him and then turns to walk away, you understand why he's just so distracted that he doesn't even recognize Strauss walking by him, because he's actually contemplating what Robert has just told him and what it might mean for the world. The biggest fear he had about all of this has now essentially been confirmed by the person who created it. And Robert is caught up there in that moment as well. Like, fuck, you were right. This is, in essence, this is the moment where Robert starts to turn, you could argue, towards the idea of having moral qualms, as Roger Robb said, about nuclear bombs,
It's an interesting thought about where exactly this is in the timeline. I'm guessing it's 46 or something like that.
Yeah, it feels like it would be.
Yeah, something like that. We have a question from Colton Short, who says, the ending of this film left me in awe. The visuals combined with the incredible score will stay with me for the rest of my life. It ranks among some of the greatest bleak endings in films, along the likes of Chinatown, No Country for Old Men, and Vertigo. Wow. I believe it has more of a statement towards life and our future and the emergence of AI. Where would it rank amongst those films with the not so happy endings?
I mean, Citizen Kane is a pretty bleak ending. I hesitate to compare it to any of the great 70s films because those live in a whole nother place for me. But I will say this, and I told Steve this off mic before we started this conversation. I rewatched the last hour for like the fourth time again in order to have this conversation, because that last hour of the film absolutely devastates me. And I think it's what elevates it into masterpiece status, in my opinion. So I am as devastated by the ending as you are. And I would say that this is on par with the great ones. I don't put it above the great bleak endings, but it's there. Mostly because I think Nolan indulges a little too much in the dramaticness of the ending rather than letting us absorb it. I would have loved to have seen this ending without any music and any pounding and just him saying that. And we see the bombs in the sky. We see him moving around, the ICBMs that are there. So for me, that's why I think it comes close to being the rat running across the railing at the end of Departed, but not quite, because it's so well done. But yeah, I love the ending.
It's funny. I think it's an amazing ending, and I think that there's the moment in Saving Private Ryan where spoiler alert, Tom Hanks is dying, and he says, "Earn this." I think when you do a big movie, when you say you're going to make me sit for 3 hours and do all the things that happen in Oppenheimer, you have to earn it. And this moment at the end earns everything that has happened throughout the film.
Yes.
Because it's not just that I think it's a bleak ending, although I do think it's a bleak ending. It's what it leaves you with. What does it leave you thinking about? And that's why I think this list of Chinatown, No Country, Vertigo, they're all totally different. It's not a ranking thing. It's not like I go, this one's better, or this one's more bleak or not bleak. It's like Vertigo is really personal in that it's like, this is what happened to this dude. I don't think Vertigo particularly tells me anything about my life or the world. It's just, holy shit, that's a real bummer. Chinatown is like, there are some things in the world that you will not understand that are just really, really fucked up. It's not saying the whole world is really, really fucked up. Whereas No Country for Old Men at the end is like, oh, maybe nothing has any meaning. That's how I feel at the end of that. That's a different thing.
Yeah.
Oppenheimer, the bleakness is we might be fucking doomed. The bleakness is, the end of life on Earth. You know, like that's so what they're doing is sort of exploring different areas of the bleak. And I think to me too, and you know, the big thing is that for me with Oppenheimer is despite having all these really smart people working really, really hard, who are really talented, and some of them are thinking about the moral and complicated issues. They really are.
Yeah.
Humans are so goddamn messy and so stupid that despite being brilliant, that we will continue to go headlong down paths to destruction, and with all the petty, stupid reasons that exist in Oppenheimer to get us there, you know?
Yeah. I also think it is bleak, Steve, but I think it's also deceptively hopeful because it says this is the future if we don't do something about it. That's what it seems to me. So as opposed to these other bleak endings that you met, what's the name of the guy who asked the question? Sorry.
This was Colton Short who asked the question.
That's a great name, Colton, by the way. I'm sorry I forgot it. But yeah, Colton, the other bleak endings are much more of an indictment of humanity and human beings specifically, as Steve was saying with Vertigo, whereas this one is more of this is our reality. We need to change it. So there is more of a hopefulness and a call to action. And I think that diminishes some of the bleakness in a good way, you know, which is important.
So we've been talking about Oppenheimer's motivation throughout, and I wanted to come back to it at this moment because it's such a powerful moment. And if Oppenheimer truly believes that essentially developing the atomic bomb started the chain reaction, which will lead inevitably to the destruction of all life on Earth, if that's what he's really thinking, then any other motivation that he has, his pride, protecting his legacy, protecting various people, should be out the fucking window. Is that if you really believe that, then you should come out and say exactly that. We are going to destroy the world. Developing the atomic bomb was one of the worst things that I have ever done, and we must all work together to stop. That's the only ethical solution, if in fact this is how he really feels. You know, that's my opinion.
Yeah.
Let's talk about post. So the editor is Jennifer Lame, who also cut Tenet. And what they're really exploring was this idea of intercutting as the emotional interior of the characters. And it was an experiment. It's not like in the script. I mean, Nolan had some of these ideas, but it's not like he went, there will be stamping here and here and here and here. And here we will cut to these sparkly things. And here we will cut to this memory. It's not that. It was constantly experimenting. And the way Jennifer Lame describes Nolan is that he is both very specific about what he wants and very open to experiments, new ideas, things that you're going to try and they may not work. And that to me is the right combo for a director. Specific and open. If you're just open and not specific, it's very hard to make something good. And if you're just like my way or the highway, you're wasting all the talents of the other people that you're with. That's my feeling.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Here's what's really cool. And this, by the way, is totally my fantasy come true as an editor. The composer was in the same building as post. So he is writing music, running in to see what they're editing, giving them little themes, giving them tracks. They're playing with them. He sees what they're playing. He goes back and makes more music and back and forth and back and forth.
Wow. Very collaborative.
Amazing. And I want to explain like what the traditional way of doing it, which is, so when I was taught, the old school editing teachers would say, never edit with music. Now, part of this is that the technology, when you're working on a moviola or a flatbed and cutting film, it's really impossible to sync up score all the time when you're doing that. So in general, they would cut picture without music for most of it. And then the composer would come in and decide how it would work. And one of the reasons they would advise doing this is that music makes everything better. So if you're cutting without music and you get it to work, that means it really, really works. Whereas if you're cutting with music and you go, hey, this works, and then you take out the music and you're like, no, this is crap. It doesn't work at all. And so that's sort of the reason. I love cutting with music. I always cut with music. So music I find is this motivation. I'm constantly swapping in music and swapping out music. If I had a composer in the building, oh my God, that is exactly what I'd want. Because I mean, it just, the amount of collaboration and the ideas back and forth, because the composer goes, oh, well, what if I make this really dissonant? And then you hear the dissonant music and that inspires you to cut the scene a different way. And then they look at the scene and go, oh, you could really use a downbeat when this turn happens, and like, oh, take it back and do that. And that sounds great to me.
Yeah.
And Gordonson also saw the crazy effects because they were also in the same post building as they're building these. And the look of the effects, the way the lights are sparkling, all those things are giving him ideas, which he takes back to work with the musicians. The other thing is they actually, usually the way things are scored, because musicians are expensive, is that you tend to score it like with a synthesizer. So you're working on a computer and a keyboard and you're using synth violins or synth trombone or whatever it is. And then when you lock down the score, then you go and hire the LA Philharmonic or whatever to record what you've already worked out. Right. They had real musicians experimenting in rooms with things, trying things all the time in order to get where they're going. It reminds me a lot. I don't know if you remember when we did Akira, the anime years and years ago. That's kind of what they did. They did all this experimental music, which is why the score of that movie is so great.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing. Their workflow for this was essentially an old school analog workflow. Here's what I mean by that. The way movies are made today, even if it's shot on film, everything is ingested digitally into a computer. And then you could do all this great color correction and stuff like that on the computer. And then you transfer it back to film. But Nolan wanted to stay in the realm of film. I mean, I'm sure they edited on computers. But when they did color correction, they did color correction the old school way, which is instead of a computer, color correction on a computer, you just imagine like Photoshop. You can do anything, and take any segment, anything you want, you can do it. Old school color correction is you're making a copy of the negative. So you're running the negative through a chemical bath with another, blank piece of film behind it. You're shining light on it. So the negative creates a positive. That's how we make a film print. And if you want to color correct, while you're doing that, instead of shining a white light on it, you might shine a blue light on it or a red light on it. It's literally happening in the chemicals and in the exposure. And the reason they had to do this way was because of all the IMAX footage and 65 millimeter they shot. Well, there's only one person in the world who could do this. And it's this woman that they flew in from France to cut the negative and deal with this film, because that's the only one that then this one, the chemically color corrected film, became the master that they put into the computer, and they had to match with the digital version. So they used the computer version to match what they created chemically old school wise in post.
Wow, that's amazing.
Totally different. And then they had to project the two side by side and watch them both to make sure that the digital version, which is what most people will see, matched that film pristine print.
Wow, a lot of work behind the scenes, but of course, a film like this deserves it, right?
It premiered in Paris on December 11th, 2023. This is right around the SAG-AFTRA strikes is going on. It's released on July 21st, 2023, the same day as a little movie called Barbie. And now we get to talk about Barbenheimer.
Yeah.
By the way, Oppenheimer, the budget was only $100 million, which I find shocking. Barbie, the budget was $145 million. So, and we have two different questions about the Barbenheimer phenomenon from our patrons. The first is from Wayne Edwards, who says Barbenheimer was a huge event. It may have saved the film industry. What are your thoughts, and where there'll be an equivalent event in the future?
Well, Tom Cruise might have issues with you saying that these two films saved the film industry because it screwed over his Mission Impossible film, and he had already done Top Gun Maverick, which arguably did save the industry as well. So, but I will say this: I think it really was an incredible phenomenon, and the reason was because you had something that was, both of these films were so populist in their approach, yet they dealt with some pretty emotional terrain, right? With Oppenheimer, is it an anti-war film? Is it an anti-nuclear war film? Is it not? Is it an exploration of this man's role in all of this, and what blame should he get, should he not get? So it's a very deep and dense film in a lot of ways, and it was 3 hours. And with Barbie, it's an exploration of gender dynamics that have changed in our world. This isn't a populist, fun little film about a Barbie. It's actually about a Barbie becoming real and then dealing with the sexism and the judgment and the body shaming that occurs in our society. So I think what happened out of both of these movies is that it indicated that no matter how cynical and bitter and frustrated and at odds we are with each other, we are human beings at the end of the day. And if you make films that are of high quality and speak about these tougher topics, people will come to see them. If you entertain them and educate them, people will come to see these movies. And so for me, I thought both of these films coming out at the same time and being as successful as they were is a positive sign about movie-going audiences. And we're seeing that now with Spider-Man 4 and The Odyssey in a lot of ways, very similar in their approaches to things, but still dealing with some pretty brutal human journeys within both of those movies. And so I think it speaks volumes about the movie-going audience, that they're not as stupid as some people like to think they are, and that we as human beings do gravitate to these kinds of movies if they're done really well, and we'll take the lessons when they're done really well. So yeah, I think it was a positive overall, this Barbenheimer situation.
I absolutely think it was positive overall. I think as we've said many times, while there is frequently a correlation between quality and financial success, there is not always a causal connection, unfortunately. And I think when you get into the idea of like a fad, like something that goes viral on the internet, it is frequently quality agnostic. Like the biggest example I'll have, and this is the only time I will ever say it, is the world's stupidest internet meme thing, which is kids saying 6'7". The 6'7" thing is just, it is literally, and you could go to like the Pet Rock, or you could go to any fad, all these fads in history where they're just stupid, but because they become a fad, then they're stupid. It doesn't matter. They just go out virally. Every once in a while, the fad does align with quality.
Yes.
And when that moment of pop, I think Barbenheimer makes no sense at all. I think it is I think it's as ridiculous a thing as, I don't think there's any similarity between these movies. We can find some sort of themes in common if we really, really, squint and work hard to do it. But the reality became a fad. But the fad was when people went to see both these movies, these are both really fucking good movies.
Yes.
That have a lot to say. And so then it essentially reinforces itself with the fad got you there. But now you're like, hey, this was a really good experience. And so, do I think this is going to happen again? Man, I hope in terms of quality, it does. But in terms of, will there be fads that people to go do weird, dumb things? Yes, those things will happen again too.
We may find out in December with Doomsday, with Dune 3 versus Avengers Doomsday. Doomsday may repeat Barbenheimer, where both of these films, I think, will make well over $1 billion. Whereas I think Barbie made $1 billion and Oppenheimer came close with 983. So I think Doomsday has the possibility to one up Barbenheimer by the time it's all said and done, because I think both of those films are going to have poignant things to say. One wrapped up in a much more populist package in Doomsday, and one in a much more dense and less accessible package in Dune 3. So we'll see.
And our second question is from Fernando Perez, who says, why do you think this movie resonated so much to the younger that it created that phenomenon with Barbie?
Well, I think because, we have a tendency to look at younger people and think, oh, what do they know? Or they haven't experienced life or whatever. But I think this younger generation that's coming through is saving all our asses, to be honest with you, because they're the ones who are rediscovering analog stuff. They're the ones who are bringing back VHS tapes and cassettes and going to the movie theaters in large numbers, more than previous younger generations did of the recent generations that come through. And I think that's amazing, because they are looking at the world from, unfortunately, a higher awareness of the fallacy and the hypocrisy and the lies that our world is full of. And so both of these films are incredibly high quality. So younger generations have a brand new appreciation for really well-made movies, which is amazing, because Steve and I come from a generation of appreciating those films as well. So it feels like this new generation, Generation Alpha, is doing that in a lot of ways here, and they're willing to spend their money to come see these films over and over again. I think Barbie spoke to them because of the changing gender dynamics that are happening at a middle school level and high school level that we see happening in our world. So they were able to connect to what's going on with Barbie. And I think with Oppenheimer, there is that sense of all over again of like, the world might be ending. There's crazy people in charge of these countries. I can't avoid the news every day in my life because it is all over my social media that I try to use. And so this is a film that spoke to people about the horror of nuclear war, but as Steve has mentioned numerous times, as a symbol for AI, which is what younger generations are growing up with from the beginning of their introduction to technology. So I think that's the reasons why both of these movies resonated with younger audiences beyond the fad stuff. I think there's a real genuine appreciation for these movies. Because think of your 16, 17, 15-year-old self, and you think you can talk knowledgeably about The Godfather or about the Chinatown, and you know what? You could. You know why? Yeah. Because you love them. So the alpha generation that's coming through should be afforded the same grace to speak about these movies because they're now embracing the quality of these films and the messages that are being sent through these films as well.
And I have to take something back because I said something very strongly that I thought was correct. And on reflection, I think I'm totally wrong, which is I do think there's actually a really interesting connection between Barbie and Oppenheimer that I hadn't quite thought of before. What have we been talking about with Oppenheimer is trying to parse an impossible, a person who is filled with contradictions and impossible questions. The moral questions about Hiroshima and Nagasaki, what Oppenheimer wanted, these are impossible things to answer. And it is that complexity that's at the center of the film.
Yes.
Barbie is a movie that's also trying to answer an impossible contradiction, which is to both love the what Barbie is and have Barbie be really important to women and also criticize what's wrong with Barbie and do both of those things simultaneously and actively within a film. They're both actually dealing with impossible to resolve ambiguities in very, very different ways, you know?
Which I think a lot of the younger generation is confronting today. So that's a great point, Steve.
Bunch of just kind of interesting records of Oppenheimer. It became the #1 grossing biopic, surpassing Bohemian Rhapsody. It became the highest grossing film ever to not be #1 at the box office.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's insane.
It made, as you said, just under $1 billion. It also was not released in Japan for 8 months after it came out.
Wow.
And we can obviously understand why. Robert Downey Jr. describes this as the best film he's ever been in.
I would agree. I would agree with him 1,000%.
Receives 13 nominations for picture, actor, supporting actress. So for actor, we have Bradley Cooper was nominated for Maestro, Coleman Domingo Rustin, Paul Giamatti for The Holdovers, Jeffrey Wright for American Fiction. I haven't seen the Coleman Domingo one, but everybody else, these are great, great performances. But of course, Cillian Murphy won, and deservedly so for Oppenheimer.
Yeah, agreed.
Supporting actor, it was Sterling Kane Brown for American Fiction, De Niro for Killers of the Flower Moon, Ryan Gosling for Barbie, Mark Ruffalo for Poor Things, and of course, Robert Downey Jr. won. It won for cinematography. It lost to Poor Things for costume design, which I understand because Poor Things is ridiculous. It won for directing. It won for editing. It won for score. Production design lost for Poor Things. And of course, it won Best Picture. We have one last question.
Ooh, okay.
And this one is from Ender Makivar, who says, I've got a little game for you. Living in the present. It's easy to look back and think Oppenheimer must have strictly hated his creation, but the reality is an agonizing paradox. His weapon ended World War II and arguably prevented World War III and many other wars. Do you think Christopher Nolan successfully captured that paradox, or did the film simplify his guilt? More importantly, if you had the genius to build it and the foresight to know both its devastation and its power, would you have chosen to create it? Let me answer the second part of the question first.
Okay.
I would not create it.
I would create it because of what it would lead to. And I wouldn't trust that someone else would create it or another country would create it because it would eventually get created. And trust them to not misuse it. So if everything stays the same, then yes, I would do it. But just because I don't trust that another country, another scientist could do it and then not use it for ill-gotten, or not use it over and over again, I guess is what I would say. So
yeah, and I just don't. It's so funny the areas in which I am more trusting and the areas in which you are more trusting.
Welcome
I
to
don't trust
humanity,
anybody.
you and I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, I mean, like, I actually think, and I think this kind of brings us to the first part of his question, which is this paradox of it ended World War II, it might have prevented World War III. I honestly think, I really do believe we've gotten lucky. I mean, I do think I do think those things are true, and I also, if you grow up in the 80s during the Cold War.
Yeah.
I would have thought that someone would have gotten it. And particularly in the post-Cold War era, where we have all this fissionable material lying around and we have decommissioned or partially decommissioned bombs sitting around in Ukraine and all these other places. And you have places like Pakistan that has nuclear weapons, and Pakistan is right next to Afghanistan. And the fact that nobody has gotten a hold of one of these things and used it to do some terrible shit, I am surprised at this point. Well, I'm happy about it. I'm not disappointed, but I'm surprised.
I have to think it's because the people that the countries that do have nuclear weapons have very vigilant intelligence agencies that are always trying to stop other countries from having these weapons. Of course, North Korea is the exception, but they're always trying to stop. And of course, we're currently in a war now, supposedly because we want to stop a country from getting a nuclear weapon. And so this is what I believe. Right, and when you look at this stuff, why some of these countries haven't gotten their hands on this stuff.
Well, and
Lord knows we have a lot of action films where it looks like they might, Steve.
Yeah,
that's a whole industry. Yeah.
Well, honestly, I think the split between the classic action film and the reality of war is part of our problem in the world, which is that we believe that Rambo can go in and kick some ass and take this instead of like the slow, plodding difficulty of dealing with these things. And I just don't trust people's competence. It's not just even that I don't trust people's morality, although I don't, but I just think people are stupid. And I think the thing, and he asked this question, does Nolan successfully capture that paradox? I think if the question is, does he capture the paradox of, the good things that the bomb has caused and the bad things, and particularly moving into the future in the Cold War and the post-Cold War? No, I don't think he's fully engaged in that. The paradox I do think he captures beautifully is the human paradox. Is the complexity of all these humans involved serving what they think are their needs at that moment for reasons. I think that's the thing he captures really, really well.
Yeah, I don't think he lets Oppenheimer off the hook if you're analyzing the movie like Steve and I just did. If you're watching it, maybe you could be excused for feeling like Oppenheimer was the good-hearted protagonist who got into this situation to do something with his life, and then seeing the ramifications of it all feels guilty about it. But I think Roger Robb's questioning, even though he's painted as a bit of a villain, Roger Robb's questioning, if you're listening and really paying attention, there are legitimate points being made by him and Strauss about Oppenheimer's convenient, logical, or moral reasoning in order to constantly try to be the good guy all the time, or be seen as the good guy, which happens throughout the movie, by the way. And so I think you've got to really pay attention to this movie. And the great ones are ones that you have to watch over and over again to really get what's happening here. And so I don't think he lets him off the hook if you're paying attention.
So, John, I know it sounds crazy because I feel like our job has just become Oppenheimer for the last month, but
I am season of Oppenheimer for fuck's sake.
I'm now going to ask you for your final thoughts on Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer.
Well, here's my first final thought. We thought when we were going to do this episode, we're like, there's only 30 minutes left. We're not going to go to 2 hours. Well, we're over 2 hours of recording it. Now, I don't know if Steve's going to edit it down, but as we're finishing recording this thing, it is over 2 hours. But that speaks to the quality of this incredible film, that even the last 30 to 40 minutes of the movie are something that Steve and I will spend 2 hours discussing because a lot of the people, the real people who are involved in this stuff, but also because of the quality of filmmaking here from Christopher Nolan. This, to me, is my favorite Christopher Nolan film. It is a fucking masterpiece. I will say that with the F word because I want to underline how much I love this movie. And I have rewatched it over and over and over again throughout these last 5 weeks that we've been doing this this exploration of the movie. And the reason is because of the quality, because of the writing, because of the performances, because of the cinematography, because of the score, and because of the filmmaking here inherent and the talent from Christopher Nolan, where he is, in my opinion, leveling up as a filmmaker to now be considered amongst one of the greats. And I'm talking Wells, Spielberg, Kurosawa, John Huston to some degree, all these great filmmakers, David Lean, who've made phenomenal movies that'll stay with us for the rest of time. I think this is a modern classic for all that. And to keep our attention for 3 hours about a nuclear physicist in the 1940s and the journey he goes on, and making it connectable with the mental health stuff, making it connectable with these ideas of persecution, making it connectable with the idea of a rigged kangaroo court and an establishment wanting to shut down or shut up someone who's trying to protest what they're doing through the usage of a nuclear weapon. I think all those things really appeal to us. And as I said one more time, the performances here throughout, for me, who always watches acting and is engrossed in a movie with great acting, it keeps me on the edge of my seat and it keeps me glued to the screen watching throughout this movie. An incredible mix of real life characters with a couple of composites and overall creating an incredible drama from beginning to end. So that's and it should have made $1 billion, which I think would have been amazing.
So I think this is a great film. And, we've had, and I'm sure we'll continue to have our debates about objective versus subjective. To me, just thinking about the craftsmanship, there is so much here. Just putting aside what the movie's about and just talking about filmmaking in terms of the score, the intercutting, the production design, how he uses the camera, how he is the structure of screenwriting, like screenwriting structure. This is a master class in how screenwriting works. And in particular, that it is essentially, of our 3-hour movie, 2 hours of it are exposition. Like there is so much of people just in trial scenes or in committee scenes explaining stuff to us. And the fact that it never feels that way is showing the mastery of screenwriting, the mastery of film technique all throughout, top to bottom. Performances from every single person, as we said throughout, completely feel real. Characters that barely have a line feel totally developed. All of that stuff is done beautifully. And in particular, Cillian Murphy and Robert Downey Jr. and Emily Blunt are just incredible. I think that's all true. The thing that elevates it for me, it's funny. I've used the word deep. Is this a deep film? I don't think this is a deep film. I think this is a deep film. I said this many, many times, and I've never defined my terms. And to me, what I mean when I'm saying that, for instance, I love Star Wars. I love Die Hard. I don't think they're deep films. They have emotional moments. But what deep means to me is how much is there for me to chew on? How much is there for me to think about? How much do I walk away from the film still thinking about it? I walk away from Die Hard thinking about, man, I love that movie, which I absolutely do. But I'm not thinking deep thoughts. If I watch Citizen Kane, I walk away, even though I know that movie backwards and forwards. And every time I watch it, there's something about Kane that is still unknowable. There's something about the human condition that it's saying that I could still debate. Oppenheimer is essentially unknowable for me. Like, I know so much about him. I can study it. And the problems that Oppenheimer deals with are unsolvable problems. There isn't, to me, a perfect solution for the atomic bomb in World War II. There isn't, to me, a perfect solution for the Cold War. There isn't, to me, a perfect solution for, in order to achieve the goal that I believe is a good, I must do this thing that I know is a bad. All of us are navigating life, and all of us, to some degree, are lost. And even the smartest, most brilliant, most talented among us actually don't understand what the fuck is going on around them and don't have all the answers of what to do. And particularly because, as Nolan said, as people who commented on this have said, if we've been talking about, we're now in the AI moment. Yeah. And I do not have an answer. But here is the important thing. And this is the thing they weren't doing enough in Oppenheimer, is the thing we need to do more now, which is they weren't asking the questions. Yep. It was wrong for Oppenheimer to question the hydrogen bomb. I disagree. We absolutely need to be questioning this right now, because I don't want to be watching the Oppenheimer, the ChatGPT Claude movie of 50 years from now of all the things that were destroyed. I don't want to watch that movie. I want to ask the questions today, even though I know that many of them are unanswerable.
That's great, dude. That's great.
Okay, so that's what we think of Oppenheimer. Of course, we'd love to hear all of your thoughts after all of these episodes. I'm sure you have a few. If you want to visit us on Facebook, just do a search for the Cine-Files. If it's Cine_Files, of course, that's Files with an F. On Twitter, it's the Cine-Files podcast. On Instagram, you can subscribe to the show if you haven't already. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and every other podcast app. If there are reviews to leave, we'd love to hear your reviews. If you've got a comment, leave them there. If you want to support the show through Apple Podcasts, it's just one click away to get you our shorts as well as ad-free episodes of the show. You could also support us on Patreon, where there are even more options, including asking questions, as you've heard some of them here, joining our advisory board. And we've just introduced our Cine-Files One Takes, which are shorter conversations about films. And for the most part, the Patreon and Apple Podcasts will be getting those 1 week early. So that's another benefit from joining one of those places. And if you want to reach me, I'm at SR Morris on Twitter. John, how would folks reach you?
You can always reach me at the Rocha Says on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And then, of course, my YouTube channel, youtube.com/John Rocha Says there, where I do all kinds of stuff there. The Geek Buddies, the Hot Mic, Spill the Tequila, my reactions, reviews, and numerous other things that go on there. So please head on over to my YouTube channel as well. And of course, our YouTube channel, subscribe to that. We will be going live, I think, next week, Steve, with our breakdown of the summer movie season of 2026 and where we're at now coming out of the summer as we head into the fall.
And I think that's it for this week. And we will be back, as John said, next time, I believe, with a live show right here on the Cine-Files.